BlueSky Hypnosis. Today is Friday, so it's Friday live at 5. Glad you're here, glad you're joining. Today we're going to be talking about the hero's journey, and specifically unlocking your hero's journey, because at the root of all of this is that you and I, every one of us, we are the hero in our story. We are on the hero's journey. It doesn't mean that we are going to answer the call of the hero's journey. It doesn't mean that we're going to take up the mantle of the hero, but that's, I think, why we're here. I think we're supposed to. And we're going to keep getting the call to step into this role until we actually accept that role, or our lives end, and then we just come back and do it all over again. Standard disclaimer, I am a hypnotist and a life coach. I've been doing this work for 16 years. All the opinions, all the information I'm sharing with you is my own. It's largely from working with people one-on-one, of course, through reading, through taking classes, through education, through meditation of my own. But most of it comes from the experience of working one-on-one with people over the past 16 years on a variety of different issues. And when the same thing comes up over and over again, and the same kinds of solutions and the same kind of answers appear, that feels like real gold to me, real value. I am not a doctor. I am not a psychologist. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. If you have an important medical issue, by all means, go see your doctor. If you have an important psychological issue, by all means, go see your psychologist. I help in a sort of complementary way for people. A lot of times the work that we do actually solves problems that they've been having for a very long time, but there's the standard disclaimer. And if you have questions about anything we're talking about today, anything that maybe is tangentially related to what we're talking about, please ask those questions in the chat box. If you have comments, please put those comments in there. That's what makes this worth doing. Let's just put it that way. That if it's just me talking, it's certainly not interesting for me. And it gets, you guys take us to places we wouldn't go if it weren't a kind of dialogue that's going on between your lived experiences, the questions, the comments that you have, and whatever I have to offer. So without further ado, let's talk about what is the hero's journey. What is that all about? So it really is a thing, and it comes from this man, this author named Joseph Campbell, who was kind of like a sociologist, I guess. An ethnic sociologist is, I guess, one of the things that you could call him. So what he basically did is he studied all of these societies at the time at which he lived, which I'm going to say was 50 years ago. I could be wrong with that, but he investigated all of these different societies, particularly with regard to what he called their base or their root myth or mythology, the story of their society. And what he found was whether you would classify, and these are crazy terms, but whether you would classify the society as a primitive society or culture, advanced, if they're somewhere in the middle, a developing culture, if it's east, west, it didn't really matter. And this was the important part of what he found out, was every single culture had as its root myth the same essential story. He came to call this the hero's journey, and the book that he wrote was called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. George Lucas, the person who is the brainchild behind Star Wars, this Star Wars enterprise, the mega business that is the Star Wars story, was a student of Joseph Campbell. And he wrote the script for Star Wars based upon the hero's journey. And if you look at the elements of the hero's journey, and there are 12 different elements, and it works in a clockwise fashion. If you look at these 12 different elements, you will see that it mirrors the story of at least the original Star Wars pretty carefully, pretty closely. And it mirrors so many other really popular stories too. Like, for example, The Matrix, when you look at these 12 different components that make up the hero's journey, in other words, they're different parts of the path that the hero is on. And you can think of the face of a clock. We've got 12 numbers on the face of a clock. It goes clockwise, and the hero begins up at the top near 12, 1, and then comes all the way back. So the hero leaves home, goes through all of these different trials and tribulations, and comes all the way back home. And again, I guess the really big point that I want to make today, and I'm going to keep coming back to, is that you, the person who's watching this right now, the person who's listening to me, you are on a hero's journey. And this is why the theory goes that we are so drawn to stories about heroes, because it's speaking to a very deep and ancient part of us that actually knows that we're on a hero's journey, and that knows it's possible to overcome all of the different kinds of obstacles that we face in this lifetime as human beings. I don't know, 10 minutes ago, when I was making sure I had something to drink, because sometimes my throat gets really dry when I'm talking, I was thinking about this and thinking about how it really may be true what Shakespeare said: all the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. That we literally might be in this kind of almost like a computer game, this virtual reality set where we decide to come into these bodies. We have a spirit, and the spirit decides to come into this body, and ahead of time, it sets up different kinds of challenges. It may be the parents to which you are born. It may be your socioeconomic situation. It may be something about health crises or challenges. It may be relationship challenges or crises. It may have something to do with war or with disaster or whatever it is. And that we are attempting to navigate our way through all of these challenges, the hero's journey, to overcome them. And in the overcoming of these challenges, we rise to a different or a higher level. And if you think about some of probably your favorite movies, your favorite novels, and you think about who the protagonist is, you think about the hero, you start realizing that these different parts of the hero's journey absolutely apply to them. And then when you look at your own life, especially if you take a step back and you look at your own life through the same kind of prism, you may not say, oh, I'm in the military, or I'm a superhero, or I, have these different features that I think the heroes that I watch in the movies have. But it's really kind of the same thing. Some of the big elements. So the three big elements is departure, initiation, and return. So the 12 elements are broken up into these three big categories: departure, initiation, and return. And in the departure phase, the hero is leading kind of a mundane life. They're leading a sort of ho-hum, just clocking in and clocking out, and doing their laundry and eating their food and whatever it is. And if you think about the Matrix, Thomas Anderson, who is the character Neo, that's what's happening in the beginning of that movie. He's just he's a small time hustler. He's working at some 9-to-5 job, and he's being chewed out by his boss because he didn't come in on time a couple of times, and he's being threatened with being fired. And he works in a little tiny cubicle, and on the side he's selling some kind of counterfeit software or something like that. And one of the first things that happens to the hero is that they are called to something greater. They're called to an adventure, and they resist it. And that's exactly what happens in that movie too. And I think this is so human. There are things in our life that we're I don't know, I guess we're sort of, there's definitely a part of us that wants to conserve energy. Right? That's a big part of us, and wants to gather energy easily. And so this is the kind of thing that can lead to obesity. A person, sitting on a couch watching Netflix is is essentially conserving energy. And if you're eating food at the same time, you're sort of adhering to a very base layer of what it means to be human. We want to, we tend to shy away from pain for obvious reasons, and we tend to seek pleasure. Well, there's also this higher part of us, the higher part of us that really does lead to sort of heroic types of people and the actions that they take. Explorers would be an example of this. Maybe soldiers, maybe first responders, maybe people who throw themselves into volunteer work or into raising people up out of poverty or other kinds of misery. And the impetus to cross that threshold and do that kind of work, whether it's physically dangerous or it's physically or mentally or emotionally demanding, is something that as humans we tend to resist in a really big way. And the hero does this. That's what happens. I would say, yes, we're all on this hero's journey, but what is so empowering is that there's nothing fundamentally different about you from any hero who has ever existed on this planet at any time. They had fears and doubts. They had major setbacks. They had feelings like they weren't good enough. They had feelings like they were all alone. They had feelings like what they were attempting to do was certainly not for them. That didn't fit them as a category. That was for other people. They had feelings once they started like, oh my God, I'm up against something that's so much bigger than me. I can't possibly prevail. They had major setbacks. They met a mentor or a coach, or they had a spiritual guidance, in their consciousness, like a spirit guide or an ascended master or God. Think of Joan of Arc. And that this wisdom that they were receiving from some other place helped them move through the darkest times of their journey. And even once they started going through this, they engaged in some kind of a conflict. They were in the middle of the game. They got knocked down. They were able to get back up. They were able to take this on again. And when they took it on again, they were able to triumph in some way. And through that triumph, they were able to then bring back what Joseph Campbell called the elixir back home, when they go from 12 clockwise back to 12 again. And where the rubber sort of hits the road for me with the work that I've been doing over the past 16 years is that I can say for sure and without doubt that every client with whom I've worked has absolutely been on a hero's journey, and that it has required immense amounts of courage to kind of face the things in their consciousness in a hypnotic state that they have needed to face, whether that be a regression to a past lifetime, multiple past lifetimes, whether it's a regression to an earlier and painful part of their present life, or many instances of painful times in their present life. To encounter a person that in their present life or in a past life was an antagonist, was somebody maybe that they were terrified of. And to through encountering that person in their consciousness, to overcome the fear that they had of that person, to apologize for mistakes that they had made, to move through and beyond whatever the challenge was. So if a person in a present life is afraid of driving a car over bridges, and it turns out in a past lifetime they were trapped underwater and they died underwater, for that person to go back to that lifetime, back to this trauma that has been held at the subconscious level and has been suppressed for so long, for them to go back into that situation that was terrifying and that maybe even led to their death, and by so doing to sort of conquer it, is a hero. And I would say, and I was trying to come up with the answer to the question, what are the major blocks that people have to their personal transformation? It's things like avoidance, which is that sort of very first stage of the hero's journey where they're living a sort of normal, mundane life, like Thomas Anderson in The Matrix. They're called to adventure. They're called to something really important. And the first thing is avoid. Don't want to do that. That sounds like it's really hard. That sounds like it's going to be painful. And yet the hero, the ordinary average person, just like you and me, finds it within themselves to somehow step up and into that tunnel that leads them, sort of like the red pill, blue pill thing, sort of leads them along their path. All right, let's see who is here and what is being said. Oh, cool. Barbara Shopper Doll, good to see you. And thank you for the compliment on the nice shirt. The Witch's Cat, good to see you. Good morning from Australia. So cool. So rare to get to listen live and excited to be here. Well, glad you are here too, inspired. And you guys, if you have any questions or comments, please make them. Katie Johnson, hi Peter, just a heads up for the next live. I think the frame rate is set to sport or 60 FPS. So there's a wobble or delay in the image. It is fine, but just letting you know for next week. Okay, thanks for that. Appreciate it. It looks good at my end, but I hear what you're saying. Lux Lobo says, hi Peter and friends, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you too. Barbara Shopper Doll says, for the hero, I think of the movie Gladiator. Yeah, for sure. Give me some ideas of exactly the moments in that movie, if you would, where you feel like, because I agree with you, where you feel like this hero aspect is really being tapped into. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Michelle Rodriguez says, I wish my university lit teacher had explained the hero's journey like you are right now. Wow, that's really cool. Thank you so much. I pulled a quote that I want to bring out because I just thought it was so perfect. And that is, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So we all have dreams. We all have, I would say, on some level, even if it's been a long time since you've allowed yourself to dream, because I've run into this, where people are so beaten down that when you ask them what their goals are, when you ask them what their dreams are, they might say things like they just don't want to feel this crappy anymore. Totally understandable. That sounds like a person who's also been kind of beaten down over a period of time. But underneath that sadness, underneath that kind of depression is, beats the heart of a youthful person, a child maybe, or a young person who has dreams, who has hopes, and who has ambitions. And for sure that pursuing those things involves lots of effort. It probably involves rejection, multiple instances of rejection, which is immensely painful. It may involve confronting fears like speaking in public, or asking people for help, or asking people for money, or whatever it is. I mean, I think the highest paid profession in the country is salesperson. I did that work for a long time, and only a small percentage of they say that 20% of the salespeople make 80% of the sales. So what is the big issue with sales? Like, why do so many people not want to do it? And why do 20% of the salespeople make 80% of the sales? Well, the answer, broadly or generally speaking, is that no one wants to put themselves out there and get rejected. Right? When I was younger, before I got married, I felt fear if I saw a woman at a nightclub and I wanted to dance with her. I felt fear before I went over there and asked her to dance because she could say no. And oftentimes that happened. And that feels like crap, walking back to your friends, hang dog and feeling embarrassed or whatever it is. It just feels like crap to be rejected. And this is why salespeople don't make their cold calls. This is why they don't put themselves out there and do the work necessary to fill their pipeline full of prospects, work that pipeline with people saying, stop calling me, bang, hang up the phone, or get out of my face, or you have 1 minute, or that, I have no interest in that, don't talk to me again, or people not returning your calls. I mean, all of these things happen to salespeople. And that's a small, tiny, little example of if you want to make a lot of money, highest paid profession, only 20% of the people who actually do it make 80% of the sales. Why? Because people are trying to avoid, just like all heroes, trying to avoid discomfort. Now, that discomfort could be something really intense, like jumping out of a plane, or it could be, if you're a police officer chasing a suspect with a gun, or I don't know, we can all imagine the different things it can be, but it can often be something as common as not going for something because you're afraid of being rejected. Not going for something because you're afraid that if you get into that role, you'll feel inadequate. Other people will discover that you're somehow inadequate, that you can't do it. The fear of other ways of failing. When I was growing up, my dad was in professional sports, and he was in professional baseball for like 42, 43 years, something like that. And when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, he was a minor league baseball manager. And these are like, 18 to 20-year-old guys who are really good athletes, like crazy good, who have been drafted to play professional baseball. And, of the 25 guys on any given team, every so often, every year or 2 years, you might get one or two that would make it to the major leagues. And these guys, 18, 19, 20 years old, 21, would be out on the field, which is kind of like being on a stage, and the lights are on, and there's an announcer, and the stands are filled with fans, and they're screaming at the player who just struck out, "You're a bum, you suck, you're whatever." And we used to talk about this. I used to talk about that with these guys. And one of the things that one of the guys said to me at one point I thought was magnificent. It's like, we're actually out here, putting ourselves under the microscope of scrutiny, where we can succeed, where we can fail, where often we do both. Whereas the person yelling at us is just sitting in a seat that they paid for, drinking some overpriced beer. And who deserves, in that kind of scenario, our admiration? Whether they hit a home run or they strike out, like they're on the field, they're actually on the hero's journey in that sense. They're literally stepping up to the plate. And I feel like this is the thing I want to communicate today, that there are two sides to this coin that I'm talking about. One side is, what is pulling you back? What is pulling you down? What is pulling you away from your dreams? Old trauma, old pain that comes out in you as depression, as panic attacks, anxiety attacks, as phobias and fears, that comes out in you as feelings of low self-esteem. These are the things that are pulling you back. And these things are largely traceable back to old traumas that you've suffered in the past. And I find the hero's journey to be very shamanic in the way that it's laid out. It even talks about at a certain point, I think it's step number 7, where the hero is facing another challenge. They've moved through departure and all that resistance. They've moved into the initiation phase. They're kind of in the middle of the initiation phase. They've already kind of met with their greatest fear, and they've sort of made their way through it. And now they're at another level of confronting their greatest fear. And Campbell calls this entering the innermost cave. And I think this is where this saying comes from. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. To me, this is very shamanic, because the journey, although we may be jumping out of an airplane, we may be going into the military, we may be first responders, we may be entering medical school, we may be stepping up and speaking in public, we may be accepting a promotion at work, we may be deciding to become parents. There's so many different ways. But the ultimate struggle is not really, I'm going to say, in the outer world. It's inside. And that's where the shamanic journeying occurs. It happens in your consciousness. And that's also where the work I do with people, that's where everything unfolds. It happens inside the consciousness, the innermost cave. This is where we succeed or we fail, is here. The ancient wisdom, the 7 hermetic laws or principles, basically states in the law of correspondence, one of the 7 principles, as within, so without. Meaning everything in your outer world is a perfect reflection of your inner world. And so if you want to change something on your outer world, you have to change it on the inside. And I think this is what we mean when we say, I want to have more confidence. That person is confident. That person isn't confident. This person doesn't feel confident. They're describing the ability to step into something in the outer world based on how they feel on the inside. So this ultimately, the way we make the biggest changes is we take that journey to the inside, to the innermost cave. That's where we do the work. Once the work is done there, now it's easier for us. It's not simple. It's just easier than it was before to step out into the world, to take on those challenges. And by taking on the challenges, we grow again. All right, let's see what comments that we have here. Lady Jane says, hi from Florida. I haven't joined in a while because of work, but this is a great topic, just in time. I wish my youngest child, adult, would hear it also. Well, Lady Jane, cool. I'm now in Florida too. I moved not long ago and really enjoying the beach. I got to say that as a person who lived in the Northeast for my whole life. These lives are all stored on my channel, so anybody can watch it at any time they want. And I understand that your child may not be interested in watching, but if they are, they can always tune in later, as can anybody else. So if you go to my channel, on YouTube, BlueSky Hypnosis, and you look under live. So it's got its own category, live, and then the rest of the content they can watch. So cool. Thanks for that. And glad you're here, Lady Jane. Lux Lobo says, love that quote. Where is it from? And I was hoping, right before, I'm going to put it back up, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Right before I went live, I thought, where is that quote from? And I cannot tell you exactly. I think it's from The Hero with a Thousand Faces, Joseph Campbell, but please don't quote me on that one. But you could certainly look it up. If you just put in the cave you fear to enter holds a treasure you seek quote, it will give you the answer to that question. And maybe somebody can do that for us right now and let us know. But good question. And, one of those embarrassing little moments where I didn't check. Alrighty. Here's Red Rover. Hello to you too. Witch's Cat says, I always related to Scarlett O'Hara, just trying to get through life while railing at the universe with a fistful of radishes. Very cool. There is a really interesting technique that I learned not long ago that I have subsequently used with different clients. And it's based upon this concept of the hero's journey, and it's based upon, in particular, movies. So, as you were saying, you have always resonated with Scarlett O'Hara from the movie Gone with the Wind. And if you do this as a thought experiment, any one of you can do this. Just at some point, not now, but at some point in the future, you can pick, your favorite movie, and then pick the protagonist, the person in that movie you most closely identify with. And with your eyes closed, you can just imagine a scene in that movie where they are overcoming some kind of adversity. And again, in your consciousness, in your mind, with your eyes closed, you can put yourself into that character's body, right? Like you take your energy and you put it inside of their body, and you feel them and how they feel overcoming this huge obstacle. And then you take that same energy back into your own body. And then again, with your eyes closed, you put yourself in whatever obstacle you're facing right now. And you will notice, oh man, my back is straighter. I feel this feeling of nothing's going to stop me. I notice that if I come at the obstacle from this other direction, I can be way more successful with that. And in this way, you do something that in hypnosis we call future pacing. You future pace how you're going to deal with this particular obstacle. It's amazing how powerful this is. And I highly suggest, if you're interested, that you give this one a shot. You try this one. So for example, when I did this, when I was learning this technique, I put myself in my favorite movie, which is Somewhere in Time. This very old, obscure movie that I just absolutely adore. And it's the moment at which the protagonist, in this case Christopher Reeve, his character is looking at this picture of this beautiful woman, and it's like he knows her. He's never met her, he thinks, but he knows her, and he falls in love with her just with her picture. And I felt all of this love rushing through my body as I was going through this process. And then I imagined that I took all that love feeling from being in his body, looking at the picture of this woman, I took it back into my body, and I imagined engaging with my kids, engaging with my wife, doing my work. And it was like, there's nothing that can stop me when I have all of this love inside. So this is, in essence, an aspect, a shamanic aspect of the hero's journey. What characteristic does your favorite protagonist in your favorite movie, what characteristic do they possess? And so for you, which is Kat, I want to ask, and feel free to answer, is if you will, is if you were to do that, what characteristic does Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, what does she have? What does she have? Like if you close your eyes and you imagine yourself in her body at a moment of her greatest obstacle, what characteristic does she have? And if you could let us know, I'd really appreciate that. That would be so cool to actually try this out with you. So thanks in advance. All right, Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie, good to see you. Happy Peter, happy Friday. Happy to you too. And she says, great topic, thank you. Lady Jane says, okay, Peter, I'm a recruiter. Feel you on the sales thing. Yeah, for sure, right? I've done many jobs in my life before I found this work, which to me is like a calling. And I was a recruiter for 2 days. I understand barely how intense that kind of work is. That is, if you can succeed at that, you are really, you've overcome something really big. So thanks for that comment. Katie Johnson says, hero journey, miscongeniality. She is struggling FBI. Oh, a miscongeniality is the film. She's a struggling FBI agent who cannot stop stepping on her own feet and becomes a beauty queen with a boyfriend and a strong career. Total hero. Okay, so same question to you, Katie. If you're willing, just take a moment, close your eyes, go into a scene in that movie, Miscongeniality, where the protagonist is up against some kind of an obstacle, right? She's reached some kind of point of, I don't know if I can make this. Put yourself into her body in that scene as she makes her way through, over, and around that obstacle. And feel what characteristic does she have that allows her to do that. Let us know what that characteristic is. And even put yourself back in your own body, taking on that characteristic, and then put yourself into some kind of situation or scene in your present life that might be presenting as an obstacle. Would love to hear your feedback on that too. Alrighty. Inspired Vitality. Fantastic analogy with the baseball players. Well, thank you for that, Inspired. Really appreciate your feedback. Michelle Rodriguez says, sounds like a Yoda quote. It does sound like a Yoda quote, doesn't it? And Yoda, I would say, there's a lot of shamanism going on there. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And here is Martine. Martine says, hello and good evening from the Netherlands. Oh, wow. Welcome to you. So glad you're here. I would love to visit your beautiful country at some point. The pictures I've seen are just astonishing. My son went there, jealous. It seems like a gorgeous, gorgeous place. As does Australia. Never been there either, but have been to New Zealand. So I know it's thousands of miles away or something, but similar in some ways. Estelle says hello. Hello to you too, Estelle. Here is Nancy Hoover. I take on a lot of emotions from movies and even TV series. Typically, I'm expressing it by crying, whether happy or sad. That doesn't feel helpful. Okay, my suggestion is that the scenes in those movies that evokes the crying is actually metaphorically like someone taking a finger and pressing it into a wound that you have, an open, ongoing wound. And when that gets pushed, it hurts. And it just means that that wound that keeps getting pressed on by these certain scenes in these certain television shows and films, that wound has to get found in your consciousness and healed in your consciousness. Because when the wound is healed and it goes from being an open, painful, sore wound that hurts when someone pushes on it to a scar, then when it gets pushed on, you're not going to have the same reaction. I mean, you're still going to find the movies, I think, compelling, but it won't tear you up in the same way. Does that make sense? I've had this same experience myself, where when I found the wound, when I healed into my consciousness, and then the same thing, the same trigger happened outside, it just didn't have the same impact on me. So in a way, these films are helping you to understand there's something deeper in that innermost cave inside your consciousness that needs to be found, like a shamanic journeying or the work that I do, where you find this lost and wounded part of yourself. Heal that lost and wounded part of yourself, reintegrate it with who you are now, and then when the trigger occurs, you don't have the same response anymore. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, cool. Here's the witch's cat talking about Scarlett O'Hara. Oh, that's easy. The thing I loved about Scarlett was she was indestructible. Wow. No matter what life threw at her, she got up and found a way to deal with it. That is fantastic. Okay. So if you can put yourself in that scene where she is the most indestructible in Gone with the Wind, now seek the characteristic that she has, or the feeling of that characteristic. So what makes one person indestructible? It might be a different emotion or feeling inside the body of another person that says they are indestructible. So for one person, it could be, let's say, the love that they have for their children makes them like this, mama bear, this ferocious warrior that's never going to back down because they have so much love for their kids. And if they feel like their kids are threatened, it's like, no, 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 no. For another person, it could be a faith that they have in God that makes them feel indestructible. For another person, it could be physical power and prowess. They could feel so strong in their body, or rooted to the earth, and they feel the power of the earth coming up through them, kind of like Bruce Lee. So I would love to know if you're able to tap into that. What is the actual feeling that leads to the ability to be indestructible? And where do you feel it in your body? And what color is it? All right, cool. Thank you. Thanks so much for that, Witch's Cat. Nancy Hoover says, we already got that one. Annabelle Hernandorina. Hi, everybody from Punta del Este, Uruguay. Wow, this is so cool. This is such an awesome group of international people today. I'm so honored and thrilled. For the people in the US, but also for people from all over the world. Very exciting. Thank you for being here, Annabelle. Katie Johnson is saying, the main turning point, and this is for Miss Congeniality, the character. The main turning point is when she is ready to give up the assignment, but she voices her upset and concern to another person. And once she is vulnerable, she gets help and advice and courage to go on. Wow. So vulnerability is Miss Congeniality's, the character in that film. That's her superpower in a way, is the ability to bring in help from other people. And when she has the help from the other people through being vulnerable, now she's able to plow right through that obstacle. Okay, so Katie, how does vulnerability play out in your life? Is it easy for you to be vulnerable? Is it hard for you to be vulnerable? When you have something really important that you're trying to accomplish and you keep striking out, you keep failing, you keep not being able to do the thing you want to do. Is it because there's a lack of vulnerability? Is it because you're not getting the help that you need? Let us know. I'd love to hear. It's so exciting. Right? Oh, and she says more here. Maybe it's I like it because I find communication and vulnerability difficult and do not always appreciate the need to get help from others. Yes, 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 yes. That is why a deeper part of you, your subconscious mind, your soul, your spirit, is saying, that's it. That's the movie. That's the one that we're gonna hold on to. Because there's a deeper lesson for you. Your hero's journey sounds like involves you stepping into something that might be really scary. It might be really unfamiliar. But it sounds like that is a path that if we put all of these pieces together, could be extremely valuable for you. And again, if you put yourself in your mind, in your consciousness, eyes closed, and you put yourself and say, okay, here's this challenge I have before me right now. It's something at work. It's something with money. It's something with my physical or my mental health. It's something about a relationship, because those are the three buckets that I've figured out, and I'm excited to hear if there's a fourth one. But those are the three that I say is largely where we spend our time as humans. If I were vulnerable in one of those situations or circumstances, and I got the help of other people, would that allow me to go right through that issue? And again, if you can feel it in your body, what the character in Miss Congeniality was feeling in her body, by placing yourself in her body in that key scene, you'll feel where it is inside of your body. You can put a color on it. And then come take that feeling back into your body, take that color with you, and then be vulnerable with all of that stuff in that particular scene in your present life and tell us what you notice. Very, very awesome. Okay, thanks, Katie. Beltar says, I love how Scarlett, would say, I'll think about that tomorrow. Yeah, that might be a way of Scarlett of being in the present moment. And what does it feel like to be in the present moment? Because if you close your eyes and you imagine being in Scarlett's body at that moment with everything going on around her, and she's saying, I'll think about that tomorrow, it sounds like she's able to be fully present in the moment. There's a film and a book that the film is based on called The Peaceful Warrior is the film. The Way of the Peaceful Warrior is the book. And the whole point of this movie is about being fully present. And how when you are fully present, to an athlete, they call this being in the zone or a flow state. When you are fully present, it's like you have superpowers. It's like you can do things you had no idea that you could do. And it's just kind of unfolding, and it's like you're not even thinking about it, which is part of the point, because you're so fully present. Maybe that's what Scarlett's talking about right there. All right, I just want to see if there's anything else in the little bullet points that I said I was going to talk about before we get to time. We still have some time, which is cool. The hero's journey story is everywhere. I said it's everywhere for a reason. I've kind of covered that, and it's because we're all on the hero's journey. I talked about the major blocks to personal transformation. When I work with people, these are the things that if the people have these things, they're very successful. If they falter on these things, they're not going to be as successful. So avoidance. When you avoid your problems, they're impossible to solve. And what do you need in order to not avoid your problems? You need a form of courage. Because we avoid things we don't want to deal with. Why don't we want to deal with them? Because there's some kind of pain involved. We don't want to get rejected. We don't want to see how much we owe the credit card company, so we don't even open the bill. We don't want to talk to our neighbor about excess noise that's coming, because we don't want to get into a conflict with them. We don't necessarily want to speak in public because we're afraid that our voice might crack, or we might be seen as a fool or whatever. We're avoiding pain. Psychological pain, emotional pain, maybe physical pain. And it takes courage to go right at whatever it is that is the innermost cave, that is the kind of seat of the problem, the thing that you're afraid of the most. The next one, I kind of covered that just now, which is fear. Persistence. A person who lacks persistence is less likely to be successful than a person who has persistence. In that hero's journey, with these 12 different steps, and I'll just pop it up here for a second. You're gonna laugh at my graphic here, because it's hardly a graphic. I just wrote it all out. It's right here. So it starts, as I said, with the hero in the ordinary world. Thomas Anderson in The Matrix. He's just sitting in a cubicle doing his thing. There's a call to adventure. So he gets a call, I think it's on a cell phone or something like that, or maybe his office phone, and they tell him to follow the white rabbit. They tell him that people are looking for him in the room and that he's got to get out of there. He actually refuses it because he ends up on a ledge outside, and they say, look, to escape these people, you're going to have to go across this ledge. He's scared of heights, and at some point he just backs down. He says, I'm not doing that. He meets a mentor. So he meets, the name of the mentor is escaped, Morpheus. He meets Morpheus, and that's the next step. He commits to a quest. There is a test to conflict where he's fighting. He has another fight, another threshold where he keeps rising up through these different kinds of conflicts. That other threshold is also this innermost cave. There's a final ordeal where he receives a reward, where he's quote unquote reborn. This is all part of the Matrix. A final confrontation where he takes this gift into this final battle and he prevails, and then he returns home all the way back to 12 on the clock with the elixir, with the secret that he has discovered by taking this long journey. I also think of Odysseus, in the book The Odyssey. Classic hero's journey. Why is this so appealing to us? It's because you are on a hero's journey right now. All right, and then faith and trust. So faith in a power higher than you, I think, is enormously powerful. Faith or trust in yourself. And I believe that comes from realizing that you're not disconnected, that you're part of something else. But however you spin it, having faith or trust, so that you can persevere, so that you won't give up, whatever it is. And then the last one I wrote down was ceding your authority to someone else. We live in this time of professionalism, which has its advantages, but it's also extremely disempowering. So, generally speaking, the authorities want to hold you back so that they can do their work. And it's like, you stand over there and do nothing, we're going to take care of this. Even when you go to a doctor's office, it's like, sit in the chair. What do they call you? A patient. Why? So they want you to be patient and just sit there. And then you get 5 minutes with the doctor to basically describe what's happening. And then they go, 1, 2, 3, here you go, do this. I don't feel like you're my partner here. I don't feel like I have any agency. I don't feel like I have any authority because I have ceded it. And I'm not telling you to not go see doctors, of course. But I'm saying that we become more dependent, we become more helpless when we give up our authority. And I think a lot of the work that the hero's journey describes, and the work that I do with my clients, is recapturing, stepping into your power, in part by taking back your authority. Okay. Oh, I said neuroscience is the key to motivation. This is something that I watched this Andrew Huberman piece recently, and I thought it was really cool. And he said, according to neuroscience, for motivation, you don't want to just fixate on reward. That doesn't work, he says, according to science. He's saying that you want the dopamine release, not when you receive the reward at the end of a day's long work or an hour's worth of working out at the gym or whatever it is. You want to convince your mind that the journey, hero's journey, that the journey is the destination, that this is the part that fills you up, that rewards you. So when your muscles are burning, when you're lifting weights, you keep focusing on that feeling as the reward. And he said that over time you can train yourself into this so that while you're engaged in the activity, working on your computer, working on your business, working on your home, when you're at the gym. Today I was paddling a kayak and I realized, oh my God, my whole life I've been fixated on the destination. Like, oh, how much longer till I get there? Blah, 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 blah. Instead of, no, right now, when I'm halfway between that piece of land and this piece of land, this is the gold. And I'm just starting, so I'll let you know how this goes. And then, how to use the hero's journey to succeed. So I just wrote down a few things here in no particular order. One of them is face your fears. Don't put things off. Don't avoid. Don't distract yourself with drugs, alcohol, porn, shopping, gambling, Netflix. Face your fears. This is part of what the hero does. Go to the hard places. If you want your body to be strong, but you hate the gym and you hate, working out, well, maybe it's time to just go do it. If this is really important to you to have a strong, powerful body, for example. If it's important to you to express your ideas to the world, but you're terrified of what people are going to think of you, then actually expressing your ideas to the world is going to the hard places. Now, again, if we were working together, we would also be looking at that side of the coin, which is pulling you back down. Something happened to you in the 3rd grade. Did a teacher make fun of you when you were standing up in front of the class? And that's kind of, because we can relieve that. It doesn't mean it's going to be now, a walk in the park to express your ideas to the world, but it will be a lot easier once we've healed whatever's pulling you back. And then I'm just following up on this neuroscience thing. Make the work the joy. It's the journey, not the destination, is the age-old phrase that describes what neuroscience is finding right now. All right, let's see what else we have here. And actually, before I go into that, I just want to talk about next week. Next Friday's Live at 5 is going to be, it's going to be on no more anxiety. Let me get that out of my face. So many people are dealing with anxiety. And I don't even know if, anxiety attack, panic attack. I'm sure there's a distinction between those two. I don't really see it all that much. Totally stressed out, anxiety, panic. I know that there's some differences in there, but I think of them as very, very similar. Your autonomic nervous system has 2 modes. It has rest and digest, and it has fight or flight, right? So rest and digest is parasympathetic, fight or flight is sympathetic. And if you're anxiety, panic, or stress, you're definitely in that sympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system, fight or flight. What is putting you there? Right? Is it somebody pointing a gun in your face? You want to be in fight or flight at that moment. But if it's just day to day to day to day to day, your subconscious mind is still on guard about something that happened a long time ago and is no longer a threat. And we're going to talk about how this dynamic works and the things that you can do in order to heal this permanently. So hopefully you'll consider joining next Friday Live at 5. Let's see if there's a couple more here that we can jump into. Oh, nice. Mind Control says, I always enjoy your streams. Thank you. You are absolutely welcome. Thank you for being here. Let's see here. Rio7. Hey, Rio. By the way, Peter, someone in the 3D keeps popping into my meditations. Is this normal? Someone in the third dimension. Can you let me know more about this? Because I don't feel like I have enough information to answer your question, but if you send me an email to peter@blueskyhypnosis.com, that's my website too, blueskyhypnosis.com, peter@blueskyhypnosis.com. I'd be happy to, just write a little bit more. I'd be happy to answer it if I can. Thanks for asking. Lux Lobos, yeah, Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's a great film and a book. And I love the looks of your dog there. It's a good looking dog. See, the Witch's Cat says, I agree. I think I'll think about that tomorrow, was putting her feelings aside to deal with things head on. This is Scarlett O'Hara, Gone with the Wind. Actually, that's something I never do. I let my feelings dictate everything I do. Epiphany, yes. Okay, I got to give you a round of applause for that one. That is so cool, Witch's Cat. Congratulations to you. Way to go. That's awesome. Here's Lux Lobo saying, next week's topic will be a great one and much needed. As always, perfect timing. Fantastic. With that, it's a perfect segue to wish you all a wonderful weekend, start of your weekend. I hope you have a great weekend wherever you are in the world, Netherlands and Australia and Uruguay, is that how you pronounce it? Or Uruguay or Uruguay? Or Florida, or wherever you are. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for participating in this week's Friday Live at 5. I thank all of you who made comments, and those of you like Witch's Cat who kind of dove into that exercise that was just sort of spontaneously came up because you talked about Scarlett O'Hara. Again, that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't mentioned Scarlett O'Hara. So I thank all of you so much, and look forward to next Friday's Live at 5 when we're going to be talking about no more anxiety. All right, see you then. Bye.